Our next speaker today is Jules Hare, and love her, love her. Hello. So Jules thrives at connecting deeply through curiosity and play. She has over 30 years experience in her practice of as a cranial sacral therapist, specializing in pediatrics. Another child miracle worker, has continually witnessed the profound power of the attention when it's directed inwards. So that is where all of our power is. We always look outside of ourselves. So I'm interested in having this conversation. Inspired by kids that surround her in both her personal and business life. And you've got this great quote, kids count on us to reveal to them the world and what's possible through our perspective. Through our perspective, it's up to us to look at our own default programming and prioritize what's really important for the growth of future generations. Did I read that right?
Yeah, it hit me in the heart. So I forgot that I wrote it until you read it again. That always feels good.
So it is, we try to teach. I like to think that what parents are doing, if I was going to sum it up, they teach what they know. And unfortunately, in many cases, it wasn't good for them. So why would it be good for their own kids?
But it's all they know.
But it's all they know.
Yes, it's a challenging reality because, of course, we grew up a certain way. And the only way we could have possibly learned about our reality is through our experience. And obviously our experience is garnered by those around us, our parents, our grandparents, our community, depending on who is close by. They're the only perspective that you have, and you're trusting in them and their perspective that that's what the world is all about. And meanwhile, like Rogerio talked about, like we've all been talking about throughout this entire morning, which has been amazing afternoon, it's all leading up and building on the next and on the next is phenomenal, is that we are all very different. Even if I had an amazing childhood and I could completely relate to everything, and I love my parents and they were wonderful, it doesn't mean that I didn't have experiences that I didn't understand. It doesn't mean that I wasn't traumatized, that things didn't impact me deeply, that wouldn't have impacted my sibling. There are so many things that are around us, and our parents make up a huge part of our world. So how they see the world is very impactful of how we perceive the world. And that's why it's so important that we are, as parents, as community members, that we're raising these future leaders consciously.
Yeah, it matters. The things that we say, I don't think that, people go and they have children, which is wonderful, and they dress them and they look after them and they, do all this great stuff with them, and they have all the best toys and whatever it is they do. But what they don't realize is that kid is a sponge. And, for the first 7 to 10 years, they're just taking stuff in. It's like there is no conscious mind. It's all subconscious. So like everything that's being said, they're just sucking it up, sucking it up, sucking it up. And kids are all ego. Everything is their fault or because of them, right? So if two parents are splitting up, the kid automatically owns it. What did they do wrong, right? So whatever is happening, they don't understand that it could have something to do that doesn't have anything to do with them. So we have to be like, I don't think anyone ever tells parents that.
It's like we forget as adults because we've already learned it, even though we remember being kids, but we forget how the world revolves around us. Even as adults, the world revolves around us, as far as we can only see our world from our own perspective, unless we choose to see it from a different perspective.
Right.
Kids just gathering. That's right. They're just information gatherers. They are continuously, whether they're observers or experiencers, they're gathering information and data and compiling this default program of how things work, so that they can one day leave home and go, okay, I have a good feel of how things work. And as a craniosacral therapist and specializing in kids, when I can work with kids and actually just ask them questions and just be an investigative reporter, as I say, hold up the magnifying glass and ask a couple more questions completely with compassion and curiosity, then they actually realize that they have something to offer to the conversation, that I'm actually not looking to fix or solve or judge, that I'm actually just curious. And you'd be amazed how kids respond. Adults respond the same way, of course, but kids actually, they feel seen and they feel heard and they feel recognized. And even when I'm working on the child asking these questions and the parent is just in a chair in the same room, afterwards they'll say, I didn't even know that about them. Or I never even would have thought to ask that. Or, wow, that was so insightful because I had no idea they were feeling that way. Because as parents, we just look at our kids a certain way. Oftentimes, we imagine them from when they were very little, even though they're much older. And we just assume we know everything about them because we haven't continuously worked at asking more questions, at delving deeper into where they're at and what they're feeling and what that experience made them respond with and where that came from. Just all of the amazing power of curiosity when it's without judgment, when we're just there asking and being present. And that's the magic of what I do
And
in
don't you ever see your parent? Like I look at my mom sometimes, right? I mean, I'm 56, right? And it's like I'm 12. So I'm looking at my mom sometimes, and when she talks to her friends, she'll speak to her friends. And I think everybody's parents are like this. My mother's not exclusive to this, right? So, the parent will go and they're talking to their friends and they ask questions and, oh, tell me more about that. And they want to know what's going on. And yet when they talk to their kids, even if they're wanting to delve, they get to a certain point and the parent hat comes on. And that parent hat is like, don't do this. I want you to do that. I think you should do this. And immediately it becomes this thing where they have to tell them what to do and how to do it, rather than sit down and talk to that child and understand how they feel about it, how they see it. It's not about how the parent sees it. It's about how they see it.
and
And how they're metabolizing the information. How are they taking it in, and what does it mean to them?
and that you jump right into that, Aisha. It's really powerful that our own discomfort comes up. So if this was a friend we were talking to versus our child, we would be more curious because we're not attached. But when it's our kid and we're seeing them uncomfortable, somebody's bullying them or they're upset, then our like mama, papa instinct goes, right? Oh, I don't want them to have to go through this, or
I'll take care of that. I'll go to that school right now.
right? I'm going to get out my lawnmower and I'm just going to clear that path for you so you never have any discomfort.
Right.
And I think that is the most important, like that is the stopping point, where if you can catch yourself where you're uncomfortable and say, ooh, that's my discomfort coming in, right? My kid's talking to me about sex and the last thing I want is to be a grandparent when my child's only 12. What am I doing? Versus going, hey, they're asking, and this is my discomfort. I'm going to sit with that discomfort later because it's important. But right now, they're bringing something up to me, and this is obviously important. So I'm just going to be curious and I'm just going to listen. And all of the elements actually that I'm talking about now, the stop, the look, and the listen, are part of the program that I do, the free program with IAUSM. And just to get the imperative, important, foundational, simple, so simple that we just think it's too simple because we like to complexify things,
Yep.
as I like,
Everything's drama.
right? There's no drama. But the stopping and looking and listening, noticing your own discomfort, and just staying with it because you know that your kid, if you are listening, is actually going to trust you to actually keep bringing more and more and more experiences to you so that you can keep building this trusting relationship. Like you said earlier with your mom, like if you just like shut down and go, ugh, roll my eyes, oh my gosh, right? She's become mom again, or mom hats on, I'm not getting anywhere here, then they stop trying to go there. And that's not the relationship that you want to have with your kids.
Exactly. Right. And I think too, it's also very empowering when you can help your child find their own answer.
Yes.
And you can help them with questions, they probably know it, if you ask the right questions, they're going to figure it out on their own.
And that is actually the last step. I don't think it's in that course, but in the book, I wrote about that piece, is that if you can stand there and be a mirror, and you've stopped and you've looked and you've been listening, and you can say, wow, from that experience that you had, I can see how hard that was for you. And for you to stand up, that was huge. How did that feel? Or what made you be able to stand up in that situation? And they actually have to look at it and go, I don't know, just something in me. It just didn't feel right. It's like, wow. And you were able to access that feeling, and that's what helped. They're like, yeah. Then you did it. They've already done it for themselves, but you're holding up a really clear mirror with love, and they love you and respect you. And so that love just makes them shine. I call it polishing the hero seed. Like there's a hero seed in each and every one of us, right?
Right.
And you can reflect that to someone else. Your kids are huge, but you can reflect that to anybody and just hold up the mirror and say, wow, I just saw what you did. And I don't even know if you saw what you did, but that did that and had that effect over there. That was really amazing. And then you almost have to stop. You're stopped in your tracks to go, I did that? Oh, because we're so quick at just moving on to the next thing. Oh, that happened. That feels good. Oh yeah, dinner time. Right?
I
If you
know,
can,
you got to let them to celebrate their wins. They got to celebrate
right?
their wins. And when they
Yes.
find their answers too, when they find their own answers, how do I do this? Let's look at all these pieces and, maybe lay out all the pieces for them like a puzzle and say, how can we move these around? What do you think? Right. And, how much more empowering for it is. What you don't want to do, and I think you and I have touched on this before, is that you don't want your child to become dependent on you. Right. So you don't want your child to become dependent on you. You want them to be able to think of things by themselves, to come up with solutions on their own. And what better way to do that, like you and I have talked about before, what better way to do that is then to just lay out the pieces, let them move them around and decide what pieces will work for them. And then that's an empowering thing for them. Right.
Mhm.
And it might take them longer because you're not telling them what to do, which, by the way, might not even be the right answer. Hello. So let them figure it out for their situation. Because first of all, kids edit themselves. Let's be real. Like kids, if they feel like you're not going to listen to everything that they say, I did it all the time. I didn't tell the whole story. Right. So if you're not telling the whole story, then how is the parent going to come up with the right solution? They don't even know all the moving pieces.
And also too, you said it yourself, you want your kid to be independent, but believe you me, and all the parents out there can completely relate to this, I'm sure. As soon as they do become independent, they're going to practice on you. And it's up to you to not be uncomfortable in that reaction, recognize they're just showing their independence. And that can be of most challenge. And so that's why it comes back to the parents, is that they're not only are they listening to you, very little are they listening to you. More than anything, they are watching you. So you emulating these patterns that you would like to see for them is way more important than anything else. And that starts, like you said, from when they're like really small.
Right. Absolutely. That's so amazing. So we were going to be talking about awakening your wise inner child today. We've been just talking about so so what have we missed today that you want to be able to share?
I think that one of the most powerful parts of the work that I do, and I've been since COVID, I've been doing it on the phone. And so cranial sacral doesn't have to be just in person, which is awesome. The most powerful part is if you have a part of yourself from when you were a kid that was super scared, traumatized, had an experience that just keeps playing over and over in the subconscious. I like to say it's like a song that just keeps playing. And if you don't actually isolate where it's playing, then you just think it's normal,
Right.
right? Let's say there's an old incident. So for me, I went up to play karaoke or to sing karaoke at a pub after a soccer game. And my mom said, go do it, Jules, if you want to, that's great. And I was like, okay, this is awesome. So I got up on stage when my name was called to do the karaoke, And I look back and there was nobody at the table that I had just come from, because my mom and my sister ran into the bathroom because they were so embarrassed for me.
Oh,
But I felt abandoned. That was my experience. I was being myself and I was encouraged to be myself, and then I was abandoned for being myself. So in situations like that, we go back to that 12-year-old self, or go back to however old that self was in your situation, and you actually recognize what they're feeling and how their environment, multisensory, what were the smells and tastes and colors were blending the amygdala, the limbic system, your entire neocortex to be in that experience. And then actually letting your future self, the part that's on the table that we're working with, actually let it be seen by that part. We'll say, hey, I recognize that you were felt abandoned and scared and that you couldn't be yourself, but I'm here now and I hear you. Is there anything else that you want to tell me, or is there anything that you need from me? And from that point, you are the only one who can really be there in a trusted form to actually believe, or that other younger self will believe. And so when that comes into balance, when that younger self feels seen and heard and present, then there's a new relationship formed with that inner child that is a team that grows together from that point. And from,
absolutely.
yeah, all of the experiences that I've had in session, those are some of the most powerful for people, because they've brought that part of them that was otherwise just kind of crying below the surface to a place where they're empowered. And now they're empowered together and they're able to keep on moving. And that is the most powerful thing that we can do. And we all have many different versions of our inner child in there that are looking for our attention. It
And
doesn't
it's
end.
critical. It's critical to like work with your inner child. When I started, I'm going to throw in one of my own examples here. When I started working with IAUSM, so I grew up, with a name like Aisha, coming from a country called Turkey, and my parents moved every year when I was a kid. So you can imagine I was not the popular kid in school, and my mother sewed my dresses, and they were beautiful, but I wasn't wearing what everybody else was wearing. So it was not a fun experience at school. So I remember this one day that my mom was looking for me because I was always an hour later than everybody else getting home, if not an hour and a half. And my mom was worried, like, where am I? And I would say I was just coming home. And so one day, apparently she hid behind a tree, and she saw me, like all the kids come out, but except me. So she goes into the school and she's looking for me, and got all the teachers. My mother can raise the roof, trust me. She got into the school and they found me in the bathroom stall. That's where I would sit, on top of the toilet tank, waiting for everybody to leave so I could go home and not get beat up after school. So I felt very isolated, right? So then when I started doing IAWSM, and I'd forgotten about that situation entirely, like I forgot about that memory. And I was doing IAWSM, and I was doing was just started, and I had been starting doing all of my interviews of the teachers, the new teachers coming in. And there was this one day, and it was like almost 5 o'clock, my last interview, and my body froze in the fetal position. I couldn't move at all. Like I managed to get through the interview. I got to my couch and I could not move my body. I was just like, why can't I move? And my whole body started shaking, and I was like freezing but hot. And I'm like, what's going on with me right now? And so I called a friend of mine. Luckily, I had my phone. And as she's talking to me, my inner child was flipping out because now I'm the popular girl in school. And I was never the popular girl in school. So she was like, don't you remember what happened to us? Like, so she was freaking out, and I wasn't paying attention because I was so excited about IAWSM that I never ever like thought about what my inner child would be going through. And she lost it and just stuck me in the fetal position. It took us 2 hours to get me out. And I remember the question came up, and I was just out. I had gone into sort of a state of semi-trance, and the question came out, what would happen if IAWSM doesn't work out? And immediately she answered, well, then I'll just die. And that I stopped breathing, right? Because I thought, holy, like she is that scared. right? So it was just like, I have to really spend time and work with her. And it was crippling, right? It was crippling. And all I was doing something that I loved, but my inner child, like, basically got crippled from it, right? So it's so important to pay attention to our inner child. That's why I love the work that you're doing, Jules, and everybody else that's working with children or does inner child work, because it's imperative. Even if our lives are going well, we forget that our subconscious remembers like a child. It's a record that's playing. And unless we work on that, we can't change the energy of it. And when we try to do things, that's what's going to stop us from doing it, or really cripple us like it did to me, right? Because I couldn't understand it. I'm in a
Well,
great,
and for you,
how is this happening?
you knew, but you also knew that it was you were able to quickly connect that it was your inner child. So
Well,
many
yeah,
people.
but I was able to, but not right away. And it was because of the questions she was asking me. And all of a sudden, that
Mhm.
memory showed up that I hadn't thought about in years, right?
Right.
But that was it. You will be isolated. You'll get beat up after school. Don't you remember nobody liked us? That was the whole thing. And that all that fear that she felt was, I could feel it in my body. And it was the weirdest
Yes.
thing. And felt like I had no control of myself. So it's super important
Yes.
work. So
And that
anybody's
is the
listening
power
to
of
this,
work.
very important work.
Yes, because it can destabilize us from the inside, like you said, viscerally through all of your fascia, your entire being. And if you have not the facilitators around you, like you're lucky enough to have, you don't know why this is happening. Why are you being immobilized when this really great thing is happening? And everything about you should be happy, but it's not. Right? Those are destabilizing moments that you go, what the why now? Everything's great. Yes. And so that is it. There's more at work inside of us, and that is the basis of this is the power of your attention. The attention is like a bridge, because I'm like a kid, I love to explain it like this. It's like a bridge that bridges your awareness to whatever it is that you're bringing it to. So if you're bringing it to your inner child, if you're bringing it to your words, like Dave was talking about, right? You bring it wherever you bring it, that's where energy is going. So, if you can be in that place to listen, and also to remember that raising inner leaders, raising future leaders, it's the same thing. We need to raise ourselves first so that we can raise our kids and grandkids and everything from that point on.
Absolutely. So going back to making sure that you're first, because when you're healthy and happy, you're better for everybody else, right? You're a better role model for everyone else. So absolutely. And you're also giving away a bonus, back part of the bonus package. I love this bonus package. I think I totally underestimated the value of it though as I go through this. So you've got a free 1 hour long distance transformational parenting session that you're giving away. And these are for the people who are now students of IAUSM or enrolling in IAUSM. So what can someone expect in that session?
Well, as always, as we just talked about, I will ask you some questions about the challenges that you're having with your kids, or in that relationship with your children. Adult children or kid children matters not. They're kids to us. And from that point on, then being able to utilize the cranial sacral from a distance and checking in as to our reactions when those certain things happen and how they connect to our body. Because like we just talked about, it's all connected viscerally. It has to anchor in the physical body in order to continue to play. So that is the opportunity to be able to connect into your parenting via your physical body and your own, possibly your own inner child stuff that's coming up in relationship to your kids.
Awesome. And now I think that, I have a collaborative group with some of the other teachers, but I think that you're also working on, I believe, a collaborative group with some of the other teachers who work with children. What's been going
Yeah.
on with that?
Well, you love it, Aisha. We are paying attention, but throughout this whole time, Cindy and I have been going, oh, they would be good for the kid collaborative. Oh, they would be really good for kid collaborative. Oh, so it's starting something up, because Cindy was one of obviously starter. She's a great initiator. And talking about how powerful it would be to have something in IAUSM that was specifically for kids and parents, and more than anything, because we all know how powerful the kids are that are being born and raised into this world. Trish was talking about it as well, that they're these sparks and they're coming in with this knowing. And if we parent the same way that our parents parented us or their parents parented them, then we're losing out on this amazing opportunity to connect to the wisdom that these kids are just coming in with. So if we treat them as teachers instead of treating them as somebody that we're supposed to teach and form, then we're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities of what they're here to share with us. So that collaborative is all about bringing to the, highlighting the potential that these kids have if we can shift our perspective and drop our ego a little bit to just let them show us what they have to offer.
That's
So
amazing. And I'm thinking of everybody that we've talked to today, and I'm like, everybody could probably, I'm just thinking like, I think Rogerio could add something into that class. I think that, like Monique could definitely add something. Like, I'm like thinking of everyone, even like Dave can do all about words. And like, I'm just sitting here thinking about how everybody could put this great contribute into that. And I think that, oh my God, that's good. That would, the parents get smart, join IAUSM. Oh my goodness, you're gonna get just that course. So it's gonna be so good. It's gonna be so good. Well, thank you so much, Jules. As always, you're such a pleasure to talk to. You guys all are. Everybody is. You guys are such a pleasure. You're such a pleasure to speak with. I love what you, oh, there's her puppets. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time for everything you do.